Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming to this meeting of the Cabinet held on Wednesday, the 22nd of April, 2026. The reason I'm sitting here, by the way, and not there is unfortunately the gremlins are attacking our microphones with zest at the moment, and we're still working on it, aren't we, Matt? Yeah, that would be a 10-year project, do you think? Or well, anyway, so this microphone works, so I'm working from here. Please note this meeting is being recorded but not live streamed, and those of you who are in front of a microphone when speaking, please move your microphone into position and speak directly into it to improve sound quality. When you are finished speaking, please turn your microphone off. So item 1, evacuation procedure. As we've got some people in the gallery, I'll read it all out. A fire drill is not expected, so if the alarm sounds, please evacuate the building quickly and calmly. Please use the stairs and do not use the lifts. Exit by the door by which you entered the room. Once out of the building, please gather outside Lloyd's Bank on the opposite side of the road. If you need any assistance in evacuating the building, please make yourself known to a member of staff. Please also make sure that all your mobile phones are turned off or set to silent. Item 2, apologies. We've got an apology from Councillor Tony Benson. Item 3, declarations of interest. Have any members got any interest they wish to declare that are not included in the published schedule? No, so thank you for that. Item 4, to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of March 2026. All in favour? Approved. Item 5, public consultation. So for public speakers, I've got County Councillor Keith Condacor for items 7, 8, 12 and 14B, and also on item 14B, Eva Thompson and Rebecca Turvey. And of course, any non-cabinet members I'll also be inviting to speak after the public speakers. So we move on to the first substantive item on the agenda, which is the pay policy statement. I'm going to move the recommendations in section 2 of the report, but I do just want to say something that's really important to me, and I know to my cabinet colleagues, and I hope everybody. In section 4.3 of the report, the statement confirms that the council continues to ensure that pay arrangements are equitable, affordable, and support the recruitment and retention of a high quality workforce. It's very important to us that we do that. But in saying so, this is a procedural report to make sure this has gone through and got to the council for approval. So I'm moving the recommendations in the report. There's no public speaker on this. Oh, is that seconded? Apologies. Yes. So seconded by Councillor Watkins. Have no public speakers. Do any non-cabinet member wish to speak on this item? No? Okay, on that basis the report's been moved and seconded. We're all in favour? Thank you, that's approved. The next item, item 7, is the adoption of supplementary planning documents, SPDs. Now, Tony Benson, of course, isn't here. Let's get to that, right. Tony Benson isn't here, but so I will move the recommendations in section 2 of the report. But I just want to highlight, I mean, there's a whole range of SPDs here, but I really do want to highlight the one that's particularly pleasing me, and again, I know my cabinet colleagues, and that's on the whole question of the parking standards, because we are very keen that parking standards in the borough are related to the size of cars now, which they're not always. So these will be very helpful going forward to make sure that, you know, the vision we have for the borough, which is looking forward, not backwards, not sticking to old things, helping people, is actually put into place. But on that basis, I move the recommendations. Is that seconded? Yeah. Seconded by Councillor Watkins. So handing over now to County Councillor Keith Condacor.
Both me and Michelle have spent lots of time, probably over 20 years, talking about all these planning, local plans, and we get really frustrated because we have all these nice plans and then developers don't do them. We don't get stuff built. On the Barrett site on Wellington Road, there's supposed to be a footpath out the back of the site over the ditch leading you onto the bridleway up to where the school's built. That you have to climb a fence and cross a ditch to get onto the bridleway. All this good stuff we have about walking and cycling and direct routes to school just is not happening, and we're spending 100,000 whatever on all these planning documents, and nothing ever gets done properly. We have no enforcement, and we are having a culture where we just create more traffic. Another example is on Gypsy Lane. Yeah, we have, under all this planning stuff, a cycle route along the edge of Gypsy Lane, past all the Bellway developments. And then it gets to Wen Brook, where it ends in a fence and a ditch. So people with prams and pushchairs are putting their prams and pushchairs on a 40-mile-an-hour carriageway to cross the brook, and then going back onto the grass and then carrying on towards the schools in Whitestone they're probably heading to. But yeah, we've got all this good stuff, but we've just not got walking and cycling routes on the ground. They just do not exist. And we do not actually enforce with the county council and the borough. I know there's both agencies involved, but the buck keeps getting passed between the two as to who is responsible for actually making this stuff happen. And the Gypsy Lane one, yeah, it is a sort of place where people could get killed in winter walking on a 40-mile-an-hour road because the planners haven't got a bridge over a river. And this should be our supplementary plan document, and we should be getting this stuff right. So I have said after a while we should give up on planning. All this money, if it doesn't actually get enforced and it doesn't actually make safe infrastructure. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, County Councillor Condacor. There's a point I want to make, but does anybody else, before I do that, wish to raise any points of clarity on that? Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, can you just clarify what that had to do with the adoption of SPDs?
Yeah, our SPDs require 15% modal shift. It requires developers to fund off-site and on-site walking and cycling. It's our SPD for transport. We have a transport SPD. Demand management, page 45.
I just want to mention something. You quite rightly point out that we've had some difficulty enforcing things and what have you. I hope to remind you that in our budget we're putting more money into that, and indeed there's some more stuff in this later on in the agenda. It is understaffed in that area, there's no question about it, but we are trying to do something about it, because I agree with you, enforcement is important. Is there any non-Cabinet member wish to speak on this item? Councillor Michelle Condacor.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, again, it's really, whenever anything comes up on these, which, the SPDs, the additional sort of guidance, and then we get told that it's just guidance, it's not enforceable, it's, you can't make people do it. And that really, really is frustrating, particularly with the transport demand management, parking standards. I've got emails going back 15 years of us trying to get it into the, and we were told, it's when get the new borough plan, which was 2011, I believe. And then when we got that, oh no, it's not in the borough plan itself, it's a supplementary planning document. And it took another couple of years to get that. And then even when we've got this document, we get applications which do not have decent cycle parking according to what it should be provided. Whatever they're building, Crow's Nest and things, is a classic example of it not being there. So, I mean, I don't know what we can do about it and things, because even in this document it's saying it's, the wording's been amended to reflect its status as guidance. Well, what's the point of having guidance if you don't make it actually be done? I don't know what the answer is and things, but it something that's really, really important to me. And I've had it, you know, even on the planning committee when I've raised various things. And then, oh, well, that's only guidance, you know. And, you know, what's the point of it if we can't actually enforce it?
Just before I say something, does any other Cabinet member wish to raise any points of clarification on what Councillor Condacourt said? Can I just say, I agree with you. There's not much point in having all this guidance if we're not going to do anything with it. I do actually agree with you. I've got to repeat a bit of what I said a minute ago. I do think we actually have not it's not been funded properly and we haven't got the right staff. You know from our discussions that we're trying to do something about it. Indeed, we put money in the budget because it's no good having this and then not doing anything about it. I just wonder whether, you know, Kevin or anybody just wants to comment on that, because I know that we're trying to do it, but it's, yeah. Okay, yeah. And many, you know, any appropriate office, yeah.
Sorry, you can all hear me now. In terms of the guidance point, yeah, the purpose of an SPD is that it does carry that weight as a material consideration when planning applications come in. So I note your points regarding it's not in policy in terms of it being enforceable. I think from our perspective, obviously the SPDs, once adopted, they do carry that material weight. They are then considered in the planning balance when sites come forward. And I think it's also worth noting, linked to kind of the national changes that are going on with regards to planning, that the route on the mechanism for SPDs will no longer be available following the 30th of June, and stuff such as the parking standards then will be picked up and incorporated into a new local plan, whereas currently the route is through SPDs, but there is national changes going on, so that we hope as part of any future local plan, parking standards could be picked up through that mechanism.
Does any non-cabinet member wish to speak on this? Other non-cabinet member? No. Right. Okay. On that basis, it's been moved and seconded. Are we all in agreement? Yes, that's approved. Right, so the next item is for me. It's the for the approval of the gas supply and associated services contract. It's amazing, and when you think about what's happening in the world, this is even more crucial in my view. But we have to plan these things, don't we? You know, way in advance. And so the purpose of the report is to enable the officers to do that. And therefore moving the recommendations in section 2 of the report. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Watkins, thank you. And we've got, on the public speakers, we've got County Councillor Keith Condacourt. Over to you, Keith.
I'm an electronic engineer, and I would really like this report to talk about how much gas we use in terms of kilowatt hours. It talks about money, but actually, the amount of money we spend on it goes up and down with the rates. If you said we used 1 million kilowatt hours, and then you could say, well, actually next year we'll use 900,000 because we've got the new Pingles, then you can multiply it by the cost per unit. So I think the reports need to be a bit more based on how much gas we're using and then what the cost is, not just it's 388,000, because that is an arbitrary figure depending on what rate we end up paying. And a lot of stuff we're doing is beneficial, like the new leisure centre in Bedworth. Unfortunately, it will still use gas, but it will also use an awful lot of electricity. So the gas boilers are a top up to the heat pumps. And it doesn't refer any here to whether we're using less than the previous year or more. Hopefully, we're using a lot less with all the stuff we're doing at the Pingles, the new leisure centre. And one of the things we need to be doing is getting rid of using gas as much as possible, because it is a very volatile priced fuel, and we can generate a large amount of the electric we need in the UK without gas. Gas has a lot of issues because it's cheap in the summer and really expensive in winter, because we produce all the gas we need in the summer and we export it to the continent and re-import it in the winter because we haven't got storage in this country. So there's lots of issues about gas, and it'd be really nice when we do these procurement contracts, we also look at getting our usage down. Thank you, Chair.
Again, I'd like to come back on that. Before I do it, any other Cabinet member wish to raise any points of clarification with Councillor Condacor? No. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think this is what this report's about. It's about how we get a contract together well in advance of anticipation, which of course, you know, you can't always get it right. There is a place for a report on how much energy, not just gas, we're using. I accept that, and hopefully in the new council year, maybe that's something that can be brought to an OSP. But this report is about placing a contract. Is any other non-cabinet member wish to speak on this item? No. So on that basis, it's been moved and seconded. Are we all happy? Yeah, that's approved. Okay, so the next item is Bedworth Regeneration and Investment Plan. I'll hand over to Councillor King. Thank you.
The purpose of the report is the recommendations to move of 2.1, that Cabinet note that the update and priorities for Bedworth Pride in Place Fund Believe in Bedworth. 2.2, the Cabinet recommend to Council an increase to a Bedworth Market refurnishment budget of 25,000 as detailed in section 6 of the report.
Councillor King, that's seconded by Councillor Watkins. We've not got any public speakers now. If there's any non-cabinet wants to speak, Councillor Rose.
Thank you very much, Chair. A quick question, really. I'm reading in media that, and I understand from this report, that part of the Bedworth market is going to be funded through Believe in Bedworth. Can I ask what happened with £750,000 which were coming out of SPF funding, which ended March of this year? Thank you.
Councillor King, are you?
That was for the refurnishment, but I will leave Dawn to clarify on the details of this.
Yeah, so the money for UK SPF, given the time frames, we discussed how we moved that round, but actually safeguarded the amount of money for the Bedworth market. So in effect, it's still funded what it needed to fund. It's just in a different way.
Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. Are we all in favour of that? That's approved. Then moving then on to culture, item 10, culture update. I'll hand over to our most cultured cabinet member, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. So a successful bid was secured from the Arts Council Major Project Fund for £750,000 to deliver a large-scale public art event. We are very proud that this has been secured and to be very supportive of this. I therefore propose to move the recommendations in section 2 through to 2.32.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. That's seconded. Councillor Watkins. I don't have any public speakers on that. Any non-cabinet member wish to speak or ask questions? Councillor Michelle Condacor.
Thank you. Well, I think it's absolutely great and things, and I was very happy to read the bit saying that this would include the building of a large-scale mechanical model of a much-loved fictional character, because when we have the mechanical model of Lady Godiva and things, I mean, we're going back quite a few years on that one now and things, but it was absolutely fabulous and it really brought everyone into town. So I hope that we can, repeat that, and that the group will work really closely with BID, the Nuneaton BID, so that we get maximum benefit to all the businesses from extra people coming in. Do we have a date yet? Because I'd love to make sure it's in my diary and I don't arrange anything else on that day.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Anyone wish to add any point of clarification to Councillor Condacor? No. Anybody else wish to speak? No. So all in favour? Thank you very much. That's approved. Moving then on to item 11, cemeteries regulation update. Back to Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. So the previous cemetery regulations were adopted in 2021. What this report details is a current proposal to include public access to historic digital ledgers. So on that, I therefore propose to move the recommendations in section 2 to 2.3.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. That's seconded by Councillor Watkins. I don't have any public speakers on this as far as I can see. So any non-Cabinet member wish to raise any questions on this matter? No? So, oh, sorry, Councillor Condacor. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask one question, which I only sort of thought about when I've been looking through this. I know a friend has asked me about it in the past, that pre-COVID, there used to be a remembrance book that anyone could go and see in Ouston Road Cemetery. And then post-COVID, he actually had to make an appointment to see and things. And he was really quite disappointed about this because he couldn't go on his father's anniversary occurred, you know, on a weekend and what have you and things. I couldn't see anything in here relating to that. Is that something completely separate, and has anything been done about that? I don't even know whose responsibility that would be. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes. Want to hand over to the officers?
Yeah, thank you. It's not detailed in the regulation, but we do offer it at appointments for people to review that. It's not something at the moment we're looking to reinstate within any of the chapels, but there is an option for people to review that if they reach out to us.
Anybody else? No, in that case, it's been moved and seconded. Everybody happy? Yeah, that's approved then. So we're moving then on to agenda item 12. I just wanted to go into a little bit of detail on this. MHCLG grant funding. The report updates members on 2 grant funding awards that have been secured from the Ministry for Housing, Communities and Local Government, that's MHCLG, 1 for development management and 1 for local plan implementation. In relation to the development management funding, NVBC has been awarded £92,340.78p. I don't know where they got the 78p from, but there we are, to help speed up decision making on major residential schemes. Spending proposals were provided as part of the expression of interest, including bringing in a contractor at senior planner level and commissioning specialist technical support in areas such as urban design. With regards to the local plan implementation, funding has been awarded to support the preparation of a new local plan under the new local plan making system and to enable the council to meet the first statutory backstop dates. NBBC is one of 39 authorities required to publish a notice of intention to commence plan making by the 30th of June and reach Gateway 1, which is a readiness self-assessment by the 31st of October. This funding stream, or these funding streams, I should say, will enhance the planning department's capacity and ensure the council is better placed to respond to the new burdens and timescales being placed upon it. Members should note that the funding is subject to monitoring required set by MHCLG, including ongoing engagement with the department and meeting local plan statutory milestones. The recommendations before the Cabinet are to note the funding awards, the proposed spending approach and associated monitoring obligations. Cabinet is also asked to recommend to Council that the general fund budget for 2026-27 is updated to accommodate this funding. So on that basis, with that, I move the recommendations in section 2 of the report. Is that seconded? Councillor Hughes. And on this, we have public speaker, Councillor Keith Condacor.
Yeah. Years and years ago, we started the local plan process and we had a target of building 6,000 houses, which then became 14,000 houses over 20 years. This funding seems to be about building 1.5 million houses in this government. And the whole thing has just gone crazy because we've now built so many houses that actually the developers are running out of buyers. So we have a major problem. And I'm very concerned by this funding if it's actually tied to us then promising to deliver more housing, because there's a figure of 1,000 in here. And I really see the market has died. I went on to Top Farm on Monday to deliver some leaflets and found out they've only sold and occupied one house on the current phase. One house out of 400 is currently occupied and about 20 sold. So I want to know if this funding is tied to us doing more housing because there's a lack of market, or whether we can actually use it to speed up things like the schools and the GP surgeries, because that's where the problem is. The housing has got ridiculous numbers of applications, ridiculous numbers approved, but we're failing on the primary school, which has got planning issues. We're failing on GPs. Is this housing money, or can we use it for useful stuff? Because we've got far, far too many houses already.
Thank you, County Councillor Condacor. Does any officer wish to come back on that? Yeah, okay.
Hi, yeah. So with regards to the local plan implementation funding, that money has specifically, we've got that money on the basis of us reaching the notice to commence the local plan and giving our notice in June, and then reaching Gateway 1, which will be in October. So that's the initial stages of the new plan making system. And that is what that money is to fund, to help support us meet the first part of the new plan making system, essentially. The government, as you know, have changed the local housing need and the plan making system, and the local housing need for Nuneaton and Bedworth has increased. The reason we're part of the first tranche of authorities is because our need is higher than that's what local government have stipulated, the reason for us being part of that tranche of authorities. And we've got that statutory obligation to commence that new local plan and to meet those deadlines. And that funding is tied to us meeting the first two of those deadlines as part of that new local plan process.
Thank you for that. Any non-cabinet member wish to speak on this item? No, on that basis, moved and seconded. Are we all in favour? Yes, that's approved. Right, agenda item 13, contract variation, finance systems, Unit 4, enterprise resources planning solutions. I want to move the recommendations in section 2, or the recommendation in section 2 of the report. I must say I'm very pleased that we're sort of getting towards this. I've felt for some time, as you know, right from when I got elected, hadn't always got our act together on IT systems, bringing things together. In some cases, we hadn't got systems at all. It is getting better, and this is part of that process in making sure that we've got systems that work together. We don't have different expiry dates for systems and so on. So on that basis, I move the recommendation in section 2 of the report. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Watkins. Got no public speakers on this. Any non-cabinet member wish to say anything? No, on that basis, it's been moved and seconded. Are we all in agreement? Thank you, that's approved. So now, moving on to item 14A, Environment and Leisure OSP 25th of March 2026, lawn burial provision. This meeting on the 26th of March 2026, the panel considered the report on the lawn burial provision, and further to this, an updated cabinet report has been submitted and the recommendations are at point 2. This is quite a lot of detail in this report, and there's quite a number of things we want to say about that. But initially, I'll hand over to the portfolio holder, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. As the Chair detailed, this report's come from the recent OSP on the 26th of March. This council does have a shortage of burial space, and it was driven to make further investigation. The report details that there are actually additional lawn burial spaces identified alongside additional creation internment plots. As a portfolio holder, I recommend Cabinet for the following recommendations. I'll try and go slowly, it's a lot. Okay. 1, subject to the strategic directors for resources and for culture and environment in consultation with portfolio holders for resources and central services, and for the leisure and health portfolio holder being able to identify the £95,000 funding required to deliver the works. In A, Cabinet approve the options identified within section 6 of the report and support the proposed allocation of 95,000 as detailed in section 6 for works at Bucks Hill and Ouston Road cemeteries and the corner plot at Attleborough Cemetery to deliver the additional lawn burial plots and extend the lawn burial timescale in this borough. And then B, note that a further report be brought back to Cabinet to confirm the funding arrangements and to seek delegated authority for officers to deliver the works within the proposed £95,000 budget, both of which will be subject to a recommendation to full council to amend the budget. 2, Cabinet further approve, further to section 4 of the report, delegated authority be given to the Strategic Director for Resources and for Culture and Environment in consultation with the portfolio holder for Resources and Central Services and for Leisure and Health to undertake consultation at the very earliest opportunity to explore the potential use of the upper area of the Garden Remembrance at Bucks Hill for lawn burials. And then B, existing lawn burial sections at Bucks Hill Cemetery be infilled across the whole of the cemetery rather than in part. C, officers be instructed to clear the compound at Bucks Hill Cemetery as soon as is reasonably practicable and to investigate the requirement for the existing 3-metre access road running through the newly identified land together with the adequacy of available space for arisings subject to operational and cost considerations. D, officers to clear the shrubs and trees to the right of the chapel at Bucks Hill Cemetery with an update to be provided to Cabinet within the report referenced in decision 1B. That E, a budget of £100,000 be identified to undertake feasibility study and subsequent surveys on identified land at Park Lane to assess its suitability as a long-term burial ground in Nuneaton, and that a further report on the outcomes, funding options and recommendations be brought back to Cabinet and full council later in the 26-27 financial year once a funded option has been identified. No recreation ground, including Attleborough and Park Lane recreation grounds, be used as future cemetery space due to the impact on green space provision within the borough. That no further action be taken at this time in relation to any adjoining land not owned by the Borough Council at Marston Lane, Bedworth, due to cost considerations. And then H, delegated authority be given to the Strategic Directors for Resources and for Communities and Place in consultation with the relevant portfolio holders to develop proposals and identify funding options for the potential repurposing of chapels at Attleborough, Bucks Hill and Ouston Road cemeteries for burial vaults, and to report back to Cabinet and full council with recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Is that seconded? Councillor Watkins. Just before I move on to the public speakers and speakers, I just want to say that all the stuff that Councillor Hughes has read out just now has been thoroughly discussed with all of us in the Cabinet and with the relevant officers. We haven't just sort of suddenly decided to say that, and it's been quite a long series of discussions. I just want to pick, I could pick lots of things out from it, but I am so pleased that we are saying we are not going to agree. And we're really reaffirming an existing policy, aren't we, Councillor Hughes? Agree to having recreation land used for cemetery provision. I think some of you know that there's been a lot of concern expressed on social media, that fount of all knowledge, about a proposal to extend Attleborough Cemetery into Attleborough Rec. That is not, it wasn't a policy before, and it's not a policy now, especially when we approve these. And I've had contact from people saying, well, I've read on social media that you're planning to build a housing estate on Attleborough Rec. I mean, where on earth does all this come from? Anyway, I'm really pleased to hear about that. you know, it's very much got my blessing, that has. So I haven't got any public speakers on this as far as I can see. Have we got any non-cabinet members wishing to speak about this? Councillor Condacor.
I mean, it's always a very difficult sort of, you know, balance to achieve and things. But I think you're absolutely right to say that we mustn't be using any sort of park land area, you know, for burials. I don't think we can afford to lose any of our park and recreation thing. So, I mean, I'd need to look a little bit in more detail exactly where some of these bits are on the whole scheme and things. But overall, I think it's probably, you know, good options. I mean, less people are choosing, you know, to be buried, but there's still a demand, and you know, it's hard to change people's minds on things like that.
Right, thank you for that, Councillor Condacor. Any non-cabinet member wish to say anything about this item? Okay, it's been moved and seconded, but I believe Councillor Watkins just want to mention a few things.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I do fully back all the recommendations that you've just put forward, councillors, and as Steve has just said, this hasn't just been something that we've just scribbled together. Put a lot of consideration into this, and you're totally right, Councillor Condacor, that we don't need to be using recreation ground anywhere. We need to be looking after the living and using the green space for exercise and whatever. So we'll protect whatever green space we can. And we've got enough things to be looking at, and as Councillor Hughes just said, that we've got a lot of things there to put forward in this report. So I'm really pleased to be seconding this. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Watkins. So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour with the amendments and things that Councillor Hughes has raised? Yes, that's all approved. Yeah. So moving on then to item recommendations from OSP, item 14B, Environment and Leisure OSP recommendations from the 26th of March 2026, access to open water. Back over to you, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, thank you. As again, moving on to the OSP from the 26th of March, I propose to move the recommendations and an additional recommendation. So the first one is to support the Sea Cadets, a very important organisation in the borough, for looking for private water bodies to meet their activity needs. The second one is to approve the use of borough lottery funds to establish a community fund to be used for organisations whose aim is to provide youth advocacy, where use of open water is a key function, and delegated authority given to the Assistant Director, Economy and Regeneration in consultation with the portfolio holder for community and public services for establishing this specific community fund application and its funding. The third recommendation I'm putting forward is while it was detailed in section 5.9 that other MBBC water bodies were reviewed, we do put a request that Barpool Brook on Queen Elizabeth Road, to really be considered. As it may have been previously overlooked, and therefore we resolve that the leader writes to Warwickshire County Council to explore the feasibility of resurrecting the previous proposed flood alleviation attenuation lake scheme within the borough, and assess whether such a scheme could also present opportunities to support recreational use, water use. Although it was previously reviewed by Warwickshire County Council and Nuneaton and Bedworth in 2023 and not pursued at that time, we do believe that it warrants further consideration. Revisiting this scheme could contribute significantly to flood risk reduction for local residents, while also creating valuable community asset. In particular, there may be potential to align this scheme with Camp Hill funding and to support outdoor and water-based activities for organisations such as the Sea Cadets and the Scouts, for whom access to water forms an important part of their curriculum. So additional recommendation, very important one that we're asking to be looked into. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Have a seconder for that? Councillor Watkins. Yeah, Councillor Watkins, you want to mention some things? Yeah.
Yeah, I will second this, especially with the further recommendations, and I'm really pleased to see that we can put some further recommendations in to allow other groups to put in for funding that us as a council can't, and also for us to have some, aspirational vision for the borough, and for hopefully to see much better things, and to help the Sea Cadets get their vision as well. That'd be really good. But it will open up the funding options for these groups to put in for that, and also to help protect Nuneaton Town Centre. So I'm really proud to be seconding this.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins. I think we're all agreed in the Cabinet with the amendments we're putting forward, that we are, again, they've been thoroughly discussed with the officers and what have you, and we really do want to see if we can help and move forward on this. It's not going quite as fast as we'd like, but we really do want to actually help Sea Cadets and indeed other groups doing this. So it's been moved and seconded. We're moving on to public speakers. County Councillor Keith Condicourt.
Thank you, and thank you for the new recommendation, because I was absolutely furious when the flood scheme up Woodford Park was scrapped, because it seemed an absolutely sensible thing to do, to hold water up in Camp Hill where a lot of the new housing is and a lot of the new hard surfaces is, and it then protects the town centre from flooding. And if you're building a new flood basin, you can actually design it the right depth and things for actually water sports, etc. So it's not too deep and it's got a solid surface of things. So it seems a really good idea. I'm absolutely furious that the old project got scrapped in secret, more or less, by about one or two Tory councillors discussing it in private meeting. We need these attenuation features anyway, and building them the right shape and the right design is a really good thing to do. The other thing I really wanted to say was about the existing proposal at Bermuda, because we have a lot of people going in dreadfully unsafe bits of water, and actually the balancing pond in Bermuda is a lot safer than the adjacent Stubbs pools and Ender's pools. And all. We've got lots of pools that are ex-quarrying, that got steep sides and loads of hazards in, whereas a lot of these attenuation features are more gradual sided, and you cannot stop people swimming. So if you can actually get them to join the Sea Cadets and direct them to the safest bodies of water, that's a far better way of saving lives than just saying you cannot go in water. It's actually saying these are really dangerous, keep out of these. This is smooth-sided, etc. But the thing that really got me about this report is how hazardous the attenuation water is besides Bermuda. Yeah, that water will go into Barbrook, it will go into Wembrook, sorry, and go down the Anchor. It'll go through the town centre, through the... Yeah, we should be doing something about this pollution anyway, because the main reason why that attenuation feature can't be used is because how dangerous the water is in it. And that water then goes slowly into Wembrook and slowly through the town centre. Yet the industrial pollution going into that needs tracking. And it's not rocket science. You follow the water course up. You get these little things. We've done them on the Anchor. You sample the water with a little litmus test, and it tells you as you work your way up where it's clean and where it's polluted. So I really hope we clean up that pond as well, and maybe look at some use of that highly regularly. Because as I say, why have we got polluted ponds? They wouldn't have it in Leamington. Leamington's having fresh water swimming in the River Lem. All these things are happening in clean and less industrial areas, and we need to make our water safe in Nuneaton, all of it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Condicourt. Do you want to come back on that, Councillor Hughes? Thank you.
Thank you, County Councillor Condicourt. I couldn't agree more, actually, because shortly after I first got elected, there was a huge pollution outbreak in Bermuda Lake, and the environment were all over the place trying to clean it up, but nothing seems to have been done for what the root cause of that pollution was, and it was there for a long time. So absolutely, I agree. If it is polluted, who's doing it, and what are we doing about it? Because it is disgraceful.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Anyone else want to ask any questions of County Councillor Condacor?
I just want
Yes. Okay, Councillor Watson.
just a point of clarification. Because when you first started off, Councillor Concoy, it sounded like we'd actually got something right in the recommendation. Is that right?
You get some things right occasionally, yes, and the whole thing is things aren't binary. I say getting these ponds is a really good idea in Camp Hill, and doing the nice thing about the ponds is I think there was 3 proposed, 2 wet and 1 dry, and it was said it was too expensive, but we can do 1 at a time. So I think a piecemeal thing would work.
Okay, don't spoil it, Councillor Condacor. We're very happy with your support there. Right, thank you. So the next public speaker I've got on this is Eva Thompson, presumably in the. There we are. Okay, Eva, over to you.
Yeah, I've been taken aback a little bit by the new recommendation, but I think that's definitely positive, and it's good to hear that things are moving in the right direction. Just to come back on what Keith was saying as well about Bermuda being a safer option, I've been doing lots of research on the facts and statistics, and the only incidents I can find are in relation to NZAs. There's been no other incidents in any other water bodies in Nuneaton and Bedworth. So. But I did kind of want to come back and feedback on some of the impact since the decision at the last OSP, just to advise of the huge mammoth task that we've had coming into boating season on the back of that, and all of the additional pressure that it's caused. Because, for example, we've had to increase our subs at the unit because it means that we need to kind of try and put transport in place again. Our subs increase is now taking it out of reach for some families to access the services because of the fuel increased costs. We've got to a point where that's not sustainable anymore. So initially we weren't able to provide any transport. We've now gone to the decision where we're able to provide the minibus, but that's for a maximum of 10 cadets out of 30. So you can imagine kind of the logistics of trying to get 30 cadets and staff over to Shustoke for boating is a mammoth task. So at the moment, because we're in boating season, we're actually not able to accept any more cadets into the unit. We're not even able to fill our capacity because we don't have the facilities and the infrastructure to meet the demand. There's lots more young people who want to join us. We've got lots more families who are constantly contacting us, and we want to provide those services for these young people. You know, like we need to be, like you're saying, we need to be looking at the future and what can we put in place for the young people. And this is the perfect opportunity, I feel, not just for Sea Cadets, but for other organisations as well. So because of all of that additional pressure, that then leads to volunteers experiencing burnout. Because of the extra pressure and demand, that then impacts on home and work life as well. You know, like our volunteers, we work full time. Everything we do is outside of working hours. And it's in itself is more hours than working full time, and that's voluntary on top of the work that we do. So often we're getting straight in from work, getting changed. We have to be at the unit before 5:45. We don't even eat until 11 p.m. and then we're up early for work again the next day. And that's the same for our young people as well, because of the distance that they're having to travel. It's not fair for them having to be up so late so that they can take part in boating experiences. So local facilities would really reduce this pressure, because it would mean that there'd be no transport required, because hopefully it would be on a local bus route. That would reduce cost, it would reduce the pressure on volunteers, it would make volunteering more desirable for potential future volunteers, which would future-proof the unit. It would increase capacity for cadets, it would increase time on water, which would then mean increased skill and ability and a higher level of qualifications for the young people. And there's also the possibility to expand to include a Royal Marine Cadet detachment. So there's lots of things that can be expanded for the borough on the back of having access to local water. So So yeah, we need support and public investment for the Nuneaton and Bedworth Sea Cadets to be sustainable and for it to be future proofed for our young people. So thank you.
Thank you, Eva. Just before I ask the Cabinet whether they've got any points they want to make arising from what you've just said, can I just say that although this appears to be moving at an absolutely glacial pace, we are right with you and we want to help within the means that we can do. We don't feel abandoned. And I'd also like to say that this to anybody who works with young people and helps them give a meaning to what they're doing and so on is to be applauded. The work you do is incredibly valuable to the whole community, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you. Now, does anybody wish to raise anything with Eva?
Just really to add to what Steve said, we are incredibly supportive. The Sea Cadets is incredibly important to this borough. It keeps kids off the streets, and we will do our absolute utmost. And this recommendation that says Steve will write to the leader of Warwickshire County Council, it will happen. So we just want to give you that assurance. And for anybody who's not been to the Sea Cadet unit just behind the Jubilee Centre, I'd urge you to arrange with Nick and Eva to pay a visit, because what they do and what they put back into this town as well. Litter picks, they're always here on Remembrance Day parades, and if you've listened to the band, they're absolutely fantastic. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Have we got Rebecca next? No, okay, fine. So that's then. So any non-cabinet member wish to speak to this item? Yeah, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I want to speak mainly about the report and the conclusions that it comes to and the picture it paints. I didn't get a chance to say this at the OSP, but I don't feel it actually gives an accurate reflection of what the status is. The RLSS report itself does indicate, and I quote, oh God, if I can find it. It is likely that the profile would be suitable for proposed Sea Cadet activities. The report itself painted a picture of a water body that is not suitable, had high risks, had high water pollution. I'll come back to that in a minute, and was thoroughly unsuitable for the Sea Cadet activities. And I'm not sure that's the actual conclusion we can draw from the RLSS report itself. In terms of water quality, the Sea Cadets have their own water testing protocol. They have their own risk assessments. If there's any water quality issues, they won't let the cadets go into the water already. That's part of their operation already. They still have the same drill at Shustoke, is that right? Yeah. Yeah. So they still have to do the water testing at Shustoke, which is actually a freshwater reservoir. And when the inspection was done in January, it was noted that there was lots of pollution about and lots of foaming on the feed-ins into the lake. Well, it's outside the boating season, and you'd expect more water and more pollution runoff during the winter in January, which is, I think, the wettest month of the year. So I don't think it's representative of what the general average pollution would be at Bermuda Lake. Following on from what Eva said about the impact on the volunteers, I've seen it. It is going at a glacial pace, and this new amendment is very welcome, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. So, I mean, we're looking at years for this to actually happen. So, what do we have a plan for the intermediate time to get the cadets onto closer waters? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Does any cabinet member wish to come back on that? He has asked a question of what.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I think the minute is in there to look to potential private water bodies in the short term. In fact, I happened to cross one the other day that could be a possible to explore. But we're hoping that the funding will help towards that. Not only that, but maybe go towards in the short term, helping you with your helping the Sea Cadets with, you know, potentially their transport or, you know, fees. I know it's not ideal, but we are trying to do our best to support you. So it is a priority that we keep pursuing this to other water bodies. And as I say, the funding is something else. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. You just want to come back on that, Councillor Smith?
Yes. I forgot what I was going to say now. I'm just thinking, looking at other options like private water bodies. Can we perhaps look at not necessarily ruling out NBBC water bodies? Because it seems like we're looking to rule out local water bodies that are under control of NBBC. I don't know if it's in there explicitly as a recommendation, but I'd certainly like to continue looking at this, because, you know, we've still got the outstanding report from the Royal Society of Prevention of Accidents, I think, which hasn't come back yet. So again, you know, I think we need to get all the information in and still continue with the Bermuda Lake option, if possible.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I think Councillor Watkins wants to mention something, or did you? No, Councillor Watkins then. Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think Brady did mention it, that we have asked for the Barpool Brook reports to be looked at as well. I'm sure you mentioned that in the start of that. So we have asked to look at them reports. I don't know what the results were. So we will continue to work with Sea Cadets. I'm sure Nick knows that I'm not going anywhere very soon. So I'm still around, and you've definitely got the backing of this Labour group anyway. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sue Markham.
Thank you, Chair. I was just going to say that the decision that was taken at OSP was on the recommendations of the officers and also the water safety risk assessment that we'd seen. So that's why we took the decisions and the recommendations that we did. So I can see, you're right, it does say Barpool on here. So if we are looking at other areas within the borough, then if we're considering something else, are they also going to be subject to the same water safety risk assessments that everywhere else has had, or Bermuda has had? Because if they're not, then why have we done it for one and not the others? So I'd like to know if it's going to be for them as well, please.
I'm sure they are. Councillor Hughes or the officers? Yeah.
The Bermuda was considered not unsuitable because of it being a balancing lake. But if there are other water bodies in the borough that are more, I'm trying to think of the word here, free-flowing, or with more water feed to them, perhaps that could be, that wouldn't necessarily need to be under the same scrutiny. But, you know, as Councillor Smith said, the Sea Cadets do all their own water testing. They are professionals. They wouldn't necessarily use the water if it was deemed to be unsuitable.
Councillor Markham.
So is that a no then? That's not going to be done?
Sorry, I'm not clear. Can you expand
so
on?
I asked if we're going to look at other places, are they also going to be having the water risk assessments done? But it's just been said that maybe they're not. So I'm just saying, are they or aren't they?
Chair, any sites that were looked at, we've got to do our full due diligence to protect the local authority and health and safety. So yes, any sites that were identified as specific, then we would recommend that the sites are tested, looked at, and health and safety wise across any site.
Yes.
Thank you.
The answer is yes, not no. Right. Okay. Thank you. Anything else? Any other non-cabinet member? Councillor Condacourt, Michelle Condacourt.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think we mustn't be putting the problems sort of out of all proportion to what they are, because I'm sure there must be Sea Cadet groups up and down the country who are not on the coast and things, who are able, you know, are using other bodies of water and things. So my feeling is that sort of the council is being sort of really over cautious, because yes, you can have all these things. Oh no, none of these bodies are suitable for water sports activities and what have you and things. But that's not stopping people actually doing them. In the while I've lived in Nuneaton, things, unfortunately there have been regular drownings and things. So with all the best will in the world, people ignore things. So we don't want to stop all the good that is being done by Sea Cadets and similar groups and things. And you hear so much about antisocial behaviour from young people and what have you and things. I know it's only a small minority, but the more activities we can have across the borough, constructive activities that are really building teamwork and such like, the better. So I think we need to look at trying to get things happening, not just putting obstacles in the way.
Thank you, Councillor Condor. I couldn't, and I don't think the Cabinet could agree with you more. Getting nods all round. We agree with you completely. Councillor Smith, you just want to come back last time, Councillor Smith, please. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it's following from what Councillor Condor was saying about the health and safety. One of the points made at OSP was about personal responsibility that might be falling on the officers. Somebody drowned, officers could be held personally responsible. I'm not entirely sure why. It was never explained in the report. But in terms of risks, one of the other things that came up with the OSP, the same OSP, was about the skate park. And to me, injury, minor or serious, seems much more likely at a skate park than it does at a balancing lake. So if officers are going to be personally responsible for deaths on the balancing lake for whatever reason, are they also going to be personally responsible for injuries, potential deaths at a skate park? I mean, I just don't understand this risk analysis from the council. It doesn't seem realistic, and it seems to be putting undue burden on the officers when I don't think I'm not even sure why it's there. Do we have legal counsel provide that information?
Yeah, I mean, without going into specific detail, ultimately, whether council owns an asset or an open space or has a duty to provide a service there, my officers and ultimately myself will be accountable to the HSE, and that can be personally liable to me. So if we had a water body where we hadn't put our appropriate safety policies in place, or it was unsecure, and somebody did drown and we were found to be negligible, ultimately I would have to account for that in court. And the same could happen, in theory, in a skate park. If we installed faulty equipment and I was negligible with my officers in doing so, I'd be accountable to that as well.
Thank you, Tom. I did say last time, Councillor Smith, really the last time this time. Thank you.
Yeah, just following up what Tom says. Of course, obviously, if there's negligence, yes, there could be personal accountability. In the case of a skate park, if the maintenance was bad and something collapsed and somebody fell off and But what infrastructure is there to maintain at the balancing lake? We've already got signage saying no swimming, and it's a dangerous pool. The RLSS report actually noticed some of that signage isn't actually currently standard, so that needs replacing anyway. Surely when that's replaced and replaces standard signs, we can highlight the dangers of open swimming on these waters, which would be unrelated to what the actual Sea Cadets are doing, because they're on boats with safety training structures and safety protocols. So again, it comes back to negligence. If they were provided access to the water, what scenarios would we be considered negligence?
I think we're in danger of turning this back into the OSP meeting again. So there's multiple scenarios where you could be considered negligible. Ultimately, officers gave advice on this water body as to whether it was suitable or not. That was challenged by political colleagues. We then saw external advice against that. And from an officer point of view, that advice has supported the initial view that this is not a suitable body for recreational water usage, based on the fact that it has runoff from industrial site, it's a balancing lake for the reasons cited. So the advice to members is that it's not a suitable site for recreational water. I believe I know that the recommendations from Cabinet this evening are seeking alternatives, and that's what Cabinet are proposing. So, I mean, we can debate this all evening, but I doubt we'll agree on this particular point. Recommendations are as detailed.
Thank you, Tom. Well, the report's been, with the amendments, has been moved and seconded. Just before I put it to the vote, can I just repeat? We are fully supportive of helping the Sea Cadets one way or another. I'm sure the officers have taken note of some of the points being made and vice versa, but we collectively as a cabinet want to try as hard as we can to help you. It's just a bit frustrating at the moment. We will get there, I promise you. Okay, one way or the other. So it's been moved and seconded. Is everybody in favour of that with your recommendations? Yes, that's all approved. Okay. Then on to item 14C. Recommendations from the Environment and Leisure OSP on 26th of March 2026, grounds maintenance procurement. Councillor Hughes, yet again.
Councillor Hughes, yep. So I do propose to adopt the contents of the report with the following recommendations. That number 1, item 4.3 come back to Cabinet with a further report with the housing and grounds maintenance, the housing grounds maintenance costed separately, and that an additional number 2, an additional item be added for report detailing who pays for the removal of the arisings following burial, and that the uses of the chapels be removed from the grounds maintenance contract. Purposes of amendments to any existing contracts may be subject to due diligence and, if viable, endorsed, noting that future reports may need Cabinet approval to vary contracts in accordance with the contract procedure rules.
Councillor Hughes, is that seconded? Councillor Watkins. I haven't got any public speaks on. Does any non-Cabinet member wish to make any points on this report? Councillor Markham.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I've just asked for a copy of the amendment because we haven't had it, so I don't know what it says, apart from what you've just said, obviously, but I haven't had a chance to read it. Thanks.
We'll make sure that you've got a copy of that. Obviously, I'm going to bit of got copies here, but you'll see what's in it. Yeah.
Make sure we'll get copies
Yes,
of everything.
absolutely. You'll get copies of everything, including, because some of the other reports have had quite significant amendments. You've got them, but we'll just make sure you've got copies of everything. Okay. Yeah. So, yes, Councillor Michelle Condacor.
Yeah, I just wanted to have a bit of clarity in terms of timescales here. When does the current contract finish? So, because I mean, it says the new contract is required to be executed to commence on the 1st of November 2027. So there's a year and a bit, year and a half roughly to go. So some of these bits need more padding out, don't they? I think, recommendation about fly tipping and things, but the budget need to be identified and what have you and things. So there's quite a few things to iron out and things. So is this sort of an ongoing thing? At what point for the contract to start in November 27, does it have to actually be signed and sorted, is what I'm trying to get at. So.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Condor. Can I just hand over to Kevin or Katie to answer that? Thank you.
Yes, so the existing contract at the moment ends at the end of October 27. So the new contract start date would be the 1st of November 27. There is an option for a further extension for a 12-month period, but that's not something we're exploring at the moment. We are working to a procurement timetable at the moment, which would enable us to meet these deadlines.
Thank you very much for that. It's been any other non-Cabinet member? Okay, yeah, Councillor Smith.
Even though I was on the working panel, I haven't read this report. I was wondering how long would the new contract be for? Is it like a 5-year contract, or was it?
Chair, that's for the Cabinet to agree. There would be a timescale that would be proposed, and then Cabinet would need to approve that. But previously, it's been a 5 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1, I think. So, but the length of the contract will be something that will have to be brought back to Cabinet to agree.
Yes, so that's going to have to come back. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? No. It's been moved and seconded. Are we all in favour? Very much. That's approved. I have no other items of business, but we now move on to item 17, exclusion of the public and press. I'm going to recommend that under section 100A4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public and press be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following item. Sorry, Councillor Rose.
Before public excluded, can I ask a question?
About
the item which you are excluding?
The previous item? Or?
No, the one you are excluding.
I see what you mean. Well, let me read it all out first, and then I'll hand over to you. Yeah. So, be excluded from the meeting during consideration of the following item, it being likely that there will be disclosure of exempt information of the description specified in paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A to the Act. And I'm moving that. Is that seconded? That's seconded by Councillor Watkins. So before we move on, are there any non-Cabinet members who wish to speak on that recommendation?
Very, very quickly.
Yes.
Number one, excluded item, obviously, which I, as a councillor, have seen contains information which I think goes beyond legitimate commercial sensitivity. It contains what public would need to do to see around the governance and the financial status. That's number one. And can I have in a public record the information from the leader of the council that section 151 has seen the financial position of the Grayson Place and has signed it off and is satisfied with the financial position? Thank you.
In relation to your first question, I don't know whether anybody wants to comment on that, and I'll come back to the second one.
I'll turn to Dawn in terms of the commercial sensitivity, but in terms of statutory officer sign-off, so all reports that go to Cabinet are reviewed by all directors and myself, but principally monitoring officer, section 151 and head of paid service sign it off before it's published. So yes, without doubt, or deputies in some cases. Dawn, do you want to cover off the commercial reasons?
Yeah, thanks. So the report does reference contributions and funding from external partners, and at this point that would be classed as confidential because of negotiations there.
Thank you. Just to add to that, this report would not be here if the section 151 officer had not signed it off.
Can I just confirm that it's yes?
Well, I've just said yes. Yeah.